6:30, I am going to call the Lake Mills City Council meeting for August 4th, 2026 to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Curler,
Here.
Ms. Schmager,
Here.
Mr. Coots,
Here.
Mr. Bartlett,
Here.
and Ms. Quednow previously informed staff that she'd be unavailable for this evening's meeting.
Thank you. Can we all please stand for Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So our first item for this evening is a correction and acceptance of the City Council meeting minutes from July 21st, 2026. Are there any comments or corrections for those? Okay, we'll accept those into the record. Next, we have the board and committee reports, and we have two, the Plan Commission minutes from April 28th and Library Board from June 15th of 26. Anything on those two items? Okay. Sure.
I was contacted by the operator of the food truck at Sandy Beach about the possibility of changing the hours that, for the fee for entering the beach. So that may be the subject of a future resolution.
Thank you. Greg?
I had largely the same things that Lisa reported out. There was one that I wanted to call out to about South Ferry Drive parking.
Oh, yes.
In front of the mailbox.
In front of the, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I also had correspondence regarding an interest in learning about public nuisances.
Nasha, we've sent one more up who's pairing with somebody from Columbus to continue providing aid to Menasha. The last update we received is about 75% of their service area has had power restored, but the remaining 25% will be the most difficult area in which to bring back online. Other than that, I will be going to the chief executive's meeting, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities here, I believe August 20th or 21st for a couple of days. For the update to the city council, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities does have a new executive director. The longtime executive director, Jerry, has retired, and Emily McFarland, the former mayor of Watertown, has been hired as the executive director of the league. So looking forward to that. Otherwise, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions? I would like one update. Can you share how we're progressing on the new technology for our meetings?
We're still probably several weeks out. We believe we're hoping to be able to get a crew in to begin installation at the end of August here. We're trying to schedule around meetings that are occurring in the room, since they'll have to pretty much take over the room for several days in order to complete the installation. So we're still optimistic for yet this fall that we'll be fully back online, and we're still working with the company. I just met with them today, so we have done final tech checks and compatibility checks for AV and in preparation for them being on site. So we should be in August or September having them on site to begin the process of installation.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to council business, and our first item is Resolution 26-64. So Misty, could you read that, please?
City Council Resolution 26-64, confirmation of city manager appointment of Andrew Chrysler as cemetery sexton.
Drake, is there anything?
Okay,
you'd like
thank
to add?
you. I'm pleased to bring forward Andrew Chrysler as the appointment to the cemetery sexton. In years past, this role has been filled by a part-time individual that has been paid through a stipend. We're incorporating it into the roles of of our current parks foreman, and bringing that to a full-time position as part of their duties. So Andrew has been doing much of the work already in the interim since our sexton retired, and he's made a lot of progress and improvements on how we are operating out the cemetery out there, and I think he'll do an excellent job for us. He's in the audience tonight if you have any questions of him, as well as Brian. My recommendation is to approve the appointment.
Thank you. Greg?
Drake, I think he'll do an excellent job as well. Just for the record, because most kids don't grow up and say, I want to be a cemetery sextant, could you please just give a brief summary of what the sextant does?
Sure. Essentially, they're responsible for coordinating of burials, selling of plots, the administrative function of managing the cemetery. So, also involved in maintenance of the cemetery, communicating with our contractors as well as the individuals that are scheduling for services. So that is in general. That, and also managing the records of the cemetery, and that's a general overview.
I
Thank
could
you.
also provide some history on that with some people wanted to donate some cemetery plots to the American Legion. And there were three, the brothers and sisters and so forth, and the previous sexton was very helpful, providing us with quitclaim deeds, doing the research on the title and so forth, to put it all together, make it go smoothly. And so we received those contributions, and we appreciated the work he did on that.
Lisa?
Just a couple comments. I'm also in full support of Andrew. He's certainly got the skills to do this work, and it sounds like he's already been doing some of it. And there's a lot of beautiful mature trees in our cemetery, so I think his skills as an arborist will also come in handy there. I guess one comment I just would like to make for the record and for us to think about as a council is we frequently have a lot of needs from our community for our parks and forestry staff, and so this will be, a little bit additional work for Andrew without adding a new person. So I just want us to be mindful of the level of staff resources that we have for parks and forestry and make sure that we're not overtaxing them, or that we think at some point about when we might need to add to those staff resources.
One remark I'd like to make about cemeteries is I've read an article in the newspaper about a rash of thefts from cemeteries of brass and metal markers, brass in particular, which is popular for veterans markers and all, have been stolen because they have good salvage value. Do we have, I've been there many times, visiting graves and so forth. There's no particular access restriction. And have we had any problem with theft or vandalism?
We haven't had any. I haven't received any reports of theft or vandalism out there. You are correct that access is largely unrestricted for people who are looking to visit. So it certainly is possible, but it's not an issue that we've come across currently.
We haven't had a problem with it. That's good.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 26-64, which is confirmation of the appointment of Andrew Chrysler as our cemetery sexton.
Mr. Coots will second.
We have a motion by Lisa Curler, a second by Greg Coots. So if we do a roll call, please.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Our next item on the agenda is Resolution 26-65. Misty.
City Council Resolution 26-65, acceptance of donation of $5,250 from Crystal Farms for the installation of a water bottle filler at Wallace Park.
So do we have
Sure.
commentary on that?
Representatives from Crystal Farms reached out to me as they were looking for a way to celebrate their 100th anniversary through a donation to the city for a project that we had. The Parks Board had in the past discussed how they would like to have a water bottle filler at Wallace Park. It's one of those things that's nice to have, but can be difficult to incorporate into our day-to-day operating budget. So Brian did receive a quote. That's where the $5,250 amount comes from. A quote for the installation of a water bottle filler. So the committee that was overseeing this at Crystal Farms did approve the donation and asked to move forward. So obviously, we'll be responsible for maintenance of it after installation, and they did ask that a plaque be put up commemorating the donation. So we would work with the donor, Crystal Farms, for an adequate plaque with the appropriate language, and then obviously citing it appropriately at Wallace Park. But staff recommends approval and thanks Crystal Farms for their generosity.
Any questions or comments about this donation? Lisa?
Just a quick question. I'm assuming this will be at the concessions building and we already have water service there? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I know as a former city council representative on Parks Board that I'm going through the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, which I know is on our agenda a little later on this evening, that Wallace Park was looked upon as being a really well outfitted park, except for this missing water bottle feature. And so super appreciate Crystal Farms' the donation of $5,250, and then also the work that was required to get that quote and consider it as an enhancement for the park. So I do know that Jacob Slobby, who's the current chair of the Parks Board, was really advocating for this amongst many great, wonderful opportunities we have for improvements in our parks, but I'm certain it'll be used quite extensively with what this park has available in it. So super appreciate the donation.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2665, acceptance of a donation of $5,250 from Crystal Farms for the installation of a water bottle filler at Wallace Park.
And I will second. So we have a motion by Greg Coots and a second by Mary Schmager. Roll call, please.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Next, we have Resolution 26-66. Misty.
City Council Resolution 26-66, Conditional Use Permit Declarations and Findings. Petitioners Lakeside Lutheran High School, amendment to conditional use permit for site improvements and an addition, 231 Woodland Beach Road, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, parcel number 246-0713-1444000.
Okay, so is Troy, is this one?
Yep.
Coming up on you?
Good evening,
Okay.
council. Lakeside Lutheran is proposing to make some improvements to their existing parcel there, including a couple additions to the building, a concession stand, and some improvement to their parking, adding a few stalls, but kind of relocating a little bit there. And in keeping with our ordinance, if a property has a conditional use on it and they make some adjustments, enlargements, additions, they're required to come back to city council for an amendment to the existing, conditional use. We've done a few of these recently with some other places, so there's some representatives here from Lakeside if you guys have any questions, but this was more of a ordinance fulfillment. We'll still go through the whole BSO process for all the building process and the requirements by ordinance.
Are there any questions from council? Lisa?
I have some questions related to parking, and I don't know if Troy can answer them, or if maybe there's a representative here, but I guess Greg mentioned that we had some correspondence, constituent correspondence regarding challenges with parking and impacting mailboxes when there's events at Lakeside Lutheran, and it looks like this project is going to have a net increase in parking spots, but during construction, maybe a reduction in that. And so I'm just wondering if there's been any conversation with neighbors or how parking concerns are going to be addressed during construction.
Do you guys want to take this one, or you?
Thank you.
You may need to turn the microphone on as well.
Yep.
Oh, you
I
have
think
it?
it's
Okay.
on, yeah. Yeah, Jason Day with Excel Engineering, and then Kirk with the school, representing this project tonight. In regards to the parking, the first phase of the project is going to be installing the parking off the bat and getting the parking installed before the building projects start, just so there isn't a loss in parking. So the parking project's going to happen first to shift the parking to the east, so it's out of the way of what would be the multi-purpose room expansion on the east side. I think it's about 13,000 square feet and some change. So we don't lose that parking during construction, if that answers your question.
So you're saying that there isn't going to be a time when there, even a short term during construction, where there will be fewer parking spots for students and teachers?
That's what we're trying to avoid.
Okay.
It's going to be an equivalency of parking that we're shifting over, plus we're trying to add as much as we can as well. So there will be a net gain in parking, but to avoid losing those stalls, like I said, the parking's going to move first, and then the other projects will follow that.
Okay, thank you. And then I appreciate that there will be a net increase in parking, and is it your hope that that would reduce some of the pressure on the neighboring streets when there's big events?
That's the hope. I mean, we want to try and maximize off-street parking as much as we, excuse me, as much as we can, and provide the parking on site, and that's what we're trying to accomplish with the area that's left between the school and the athletic fields to the east.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I would just, to make sure that city council receives the same information I provided to the plan commission. The city stormwater, the new ordinance does come into effect on the addition on this. So the addition must comply with the 80% TSS. That ordinance does not apply to the existing site, so it makes it for kind of a blended TSS removal of 63.5%. It is my opinion that you are able to place a condition on the conditional use to require compliance with the 80% to the greatest extent possible within the physical confines of the site for where the pond is located. It is an improvement over existing conditions. Right now, essentially, there's no TSS removal for it, so it is an improvement to 63.5%. But because of the conditional use, it is within the council's authority to place a condition upon the project in order to meet the 80% threshold that if this site was undeveloped currently and was being developed right now, that it would be required to meet. But it does meet the existing code as written and approved by the city council.
So go ahead, Lisa.
Just a follow-up to that, or for Drake or Jim, was there any public comment or any discussion at the Plan Commission, and what was the Plan Commission vote?
There was one public comment. The Plan Commission recommended approval unanimously. They did discuss the stormwater issue, but ultimately decided that the compliance with the ordinance as written was adequate for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll do a roll call, please.
I think we need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion, excuse me.
I'll make the motion to accept Resolution 2666 as written, amending the conditional use request for Lakeside Lutheran.
I will second the motion. So we have a motion by Greg Coots, a second by Mary Schmager. No further discussion now. It's roll call, please.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 26-67. Misty.
City Council Resolution 26-67, approval of the City of Lake Mills Comprehensive Outdoor Recreational Plan 2026 to 2030.
So do we have Brian or Drake?
This is the result of months of work by the Parks Board. Staff did go through it after the recommendation and did attempt to find any spelling errors or grammatical errors. Those types of things can be resolved if we find them in the future as well, but it does reflect the recommendations of the Parks Board. The Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan is required for eligibility for certain grants, which is why we went through the update process for it. So this one will be in effect through 2030, so it'll make us eligible throughout that time period. Not that updates or amendments can't happen in the interim, but this is a roadmap of sorts for desired amenities and expansion of park space and what the recreational amenities within the community we would target for potential grant opportunities or improvement over both the time period that's listed as well as kind of a 20-year planning horizon for recreational amenities within the community. So the Parks Board recommends approval.
I would like to make a comment regarding the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. A big thank you to all of the Parks Board members and those community members that came to the open sessions to provide input and feedback, and also to Lisa Curler for getting it over the finish line. So thank you. I know it's a lot of work, but there were some loose ends when you joined on the parks, and super appreciate you getting it to conclusion.
Oh, yeah, very happy to finish it up, and I guess I would give a shout out right back to Mary. She helped lead the effort at the Parks Board and also created the summary document, which I think is really handy if you already had some familiarity with the previous corp. That was it's a quick and easy read to see what's different and maybe what some projects that we'd envisioned 5 years ago that we're no longer thinking about, and then new things. I also really appreciate how the goals that we established last winter for Sandy Beach Park, the timing was perfect to put those goals into this document. And so now, people can refer back to that and see, our goals for that redevelopment project.
I guess I would clarify, just for anybody who may be watching or reading this plan, that this is not like a Parks Capital Improvement Plan. This isn't a schedule of improvements that are going to happen within this time period. It's a list of desired amenities that if funding were to become available or if growth were to occur in certain areas and a new park was dedicated, the types of things that we would be targeting for improvements or new amenities in new parks that we may have. So this makes us eligible for grants, but it does not obligate us to a schedule or a need to complete any project that may be listed within it. And it doesn't prohibit the city from undertaking a project that may not be listed within it.
Yes, Jim?
I'd like to know if there are any contentious or issues or disagreements among the board member, the Parks Commission members, or any input from citizens objecting to what the Parks Board decided.
There was a number of sessions that the board received public comment at. I can't say that there was never any disagreement or conversations during it, but the Parks Board was certainly working towards consensus as they were building the document. So I don't remember anything particularly controversial that came up during their deliberations.
The Parks Board unanimous in their vote to approve?
Yes, they were unanimous
Yes.
in their recommendation.
There are a couple of remarks here that say, consider consider adding bike racks. When there are considerations, what's the effect of that, of adding consider? I mean, you can always consider anything, but is this stronger than merely, a consideration that is a proposal?
I think for those items, it was intentional to use that language to soften it as something that if the opportunity arose, that a conversation should occur over whether to pursue such an item. Its inclusion in the corp does make it eligible for potential grants, even listed as a consideration.
But it would still take a vote.
That's correct, yes. Anything within here that was going to happen would require city council approval.
And based on our actions we've already taken tonight, we've already checked off one of the items that's in the corp with having the new water bottle filler at Wallace Park. So that was certainly on the list of desires.
And I will answer your question about, as far as debate, I would say the number one conversation that I think causes continually the most debate is just timetable by which to achieve all of these wonderful improvements that, are noted in the corp plan, and more so in the spirit of, boy, it sure would be nice if we had a lot of donors and a lot of, additional funding sources, because our parks really are great, but we have a lot of other things that we'd still like to do to make them even greater. And so it was more, I think, just the push and pull around. I would say it's I don't call it a wish list, but it is a very comprehensive set of ideas and ideals that if we actually could have an unlimited budget, we would love to pursue all of these, and if we had enough staff and whatnot. So I think I would say the disagreement on what is in it, or what the components are, I feel there was strong consensus and direction and a lot of great input from the citizens, and it's more the how do you get all of this done kind of makes that the challenging part of the conversation. And that's where I know Brian, as he gets working on, is the budget and the CIP coming up, will be choosing and helping to frame what investments we make and which aspects of the things that are in the corp. And I think Sandy Beach will be a big player on with a lot of the money, but then what else would be the highest priority? And it'll be stuff that I'm certain is listed in the corp.
There's one item here under forestry. It said, added, promote community outreach and education. Does that cost money? What sort of education are we talking about? Holding meetings or publicity in the newspaper or on the website? What kind of community outreach and what sort of education are you proposing, or are they proposing?
What page are you on, Jim? So I can.
It says
Right at the beginning.
Chapter 6. It's the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan.
It's one of the changes that's listed in the summary as
Oh, okay.
well.
Yep.
I can take a stab at that. I know
Added,
some of this came from Parks Board discussion and also council discussion. I think in the last couple of years, there's been increasing awareness and interest in our urban forest and protecting mature trees. And so I think it's just kind of a bullet point to say, let's try to communicate to our citizens more about what the city is doing with our, how we're managing our forests.
But that wouldn't involve hiring an arborist or something like that. I'm just thinking about spending money.
Right, I think it's written in sort of an open-ended way, so it's really just kind of encouraging that communication, and Brian and his team can, be thinking about that as they're doing different projects. How, is there an educational component to this? Could we put an article in the newspaper as we're doing a project? I don't think it was envisioned as anything that would, require hiring a staff person, for example, or requiring a cost.
Okay.
But good question. Well, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 26-67, which is approval of the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan for 2026 to 2030.
Mr. Coots will second.
I have a motion by Lisa Curler, a second by Greg Coots. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, our next item, E, is Resolution 26-68.
City Council Resolution 26-68, authorizing the city manager to execute a task order with the city engineer and city planner for the design of the Sandy Beach Improvement Project.
So I'll turn this to
Sure.
you.
This is, we could call it the kickoff of the calendar for our Sandy Beach Improvement Project. So action tonight would authorize me to execute task orders with both Mead and Hunt and Strand Associates for the design of the Sandy Beach Improvement Project. There are a number of attachments included, one from jointly from Strand and Mead and Hunt, and then one from each of them with more detail on the different responsibilities within their scope of work. I will note that in which one is it titled? The Sandy Beach Redevelopment Design Fee Proposal, you will see some items in red. So there are some items that the city council can remove from the design scope of work in order to reduce cost. One of them that came up frequently was the designing of the second parking lot. We don't have to design that now. We will design for example, the stormwater management as if that would be constructed in the future, or as if essentially impermeable surface would be included in it, but it does not need to be incorporated now. There are other items, and some of these items, we can, as we get to decision points throughout the process, maybe they become more clear as we decide whether or not, for example, we want to repurpose the existing shelters down there instead of installing 2 new shelters, things like that. So that is the proposal before you. There's likely adequate capital funds to take us through the end of the year, ideally. There's probably $460-ish thousand in funds dedicated towards Sandy Beach that we have on hand for design-related purposes, and then the balance, either we'd have to, if it was all being billed in the remainder of 26, if we got to that point and made enough progress there, then we would likely come back for a recommendation for use of fund balance for the remainder of it, or we would incorporate it into the capital improvement plan for 2027. So some of that is dependent on if there's any scope reductions tonight, but they're both representatives from both Strand and Mead and Hunt are here tonight if you have any questions regarding their proposals. Otherwise, as I said, in order to meet the aggressive timeline that City Council has stated that they'd like, we really do have to continue moving forward, and we can't do so without executing a work effort from the designers of it. So I'm not saying that you have to make a decision tonight, but each time we don't make a decision, the implementation of the project does get delayed and makes that aggressive schedule less feasible.
Question. They've already done a lot of work on this project, as we saw in our work session. How is that authorized? And you're asking for new authority.
Right.
What authority do you already have?
Well, previously, the city council had asked for the concept planning stage to be completed, and so that's what they've completed and been paid for tonight. This is hard design of the project, so getting to, the 30%, 60%, 90% plan sets with design decisions made by the city council to eventually create a biddable package to bid out for actual construction. So this is taking it from the concept stage that we've been at for the last couple of months to hard design for an eventual project to take place, to be able to solicit bids and solicit pricing from the producers of prefabricated products, things of that nature.
So we already exhausted the funds that were allocated for the design, for the,
We've completed the concept design work, and so they've executed on that work effort, and they've been paid for that work effort. This is for the actual design of the concept plan.
So I kind of look at this, Jim, as I'm going to remodel my kitchen, and so we kind of have a schematic of how we want our kitchen to be laid out, and so we paid for that. And now we're going to have to pick, we'll make sure the plumbing works in the right, like make sure we can put our sink exactly where we think, and where we can put our exhaust fluid where we think, and then what are we picking for our cabinets and picking for our things and for our countertops. And so I think that, so we've got the blueprint and the general concept, and now this is taking it to the next level where it's actually starting to pick materials and design does it fit actually between the trees? And when we laid on the tree plan, which they started to do, does it work? And then do we need to shift to this or that? So it's getting to the point where we're actually going to execute on getting a bulldozer in there and being prepared to get the bulldozer in there and start putting improvements into the park. So that's how I look at it. We've done the kitchen schematic, and now we're working on the nuts and bolts about actually bringing it to life. Is that a good way, fair way? I don't know, I should look to our Strand and Meeting on folks, but I kind of look at it as we're next in that phase of the paper is just the high schematic, and now we're ready to get into the details of, figuring out the exact measurements in the right spot and the colors and look and feel, and all of that starts with this next.
I think it's a great, I need to go to the microphone, so we made the all just kind of over there. It's like a small parade.
I think you know everybody here. Brandon with Strand, Dustin with Mead and Hunt. This is Mark Sauer with Mead and Hunt. I think it's a great analogy as to, you know what you want to build, but now you've got to make sure that it fits in the space and you can turn it over to someone to actually build it
And
the
that
way
we
that
can
you're
afford it.
expecting. I'm sorry?
and that we can afford it.
Well, that was
Yep.
what we had talked about in some of the concept level, and then you had some kind of order of magnitude on costs, on presumed costs for element items. And those were things that we were working from in developing the details that you see before you. So obviously, Strand was working on a lot of the site civil details. We were working on landscape architecture, the fitment of facilities, the coordination with the various vendors, right, helping you with product selection, et cetera. That's all a part of this package. But ultimately, Strand, as they've done with many engineering projects, need to get a plan set together that can be provided to potential contractors to evaluate and bid on, to build what you want build in the kind of order that you want it or the timing that you want it. I'm looking at Brandon on.
I just thought I'd elaborate a little bit on the items that are in red. That some of the ways that we were looking at this is like, what are the elements that are critical to like accomplishing the goal and the nature of this concept? One of the things that Drake had pointed out and Lisa had pointed out is that parking lot B, we're calling it, doesn't really need to be built to accomplish the in the short term, the next year and a half, let's call it, or 2 years, to accomplish the overall goal of the park redevelopment. Some of the other things in red was like the restroom building, that there is a restroom building there. However, when one of the exhibits on the packet tonight had the concept line work overlaid, that if you were to build the concept line work exactly where it is shown, you would be overlapping the existing restroom. We could shift, say, the pavilion slightly and leave the existing restroom. I read through the Parks Board recommendation on Sandy Beach many times, and I know they were recommending a new restroom. However, the design fee for bringing in a new restroom, siting it, grading it, selecting likely a pre-manufactured structure, going through all the design options that are kind of outlined in the Mead and Hunt memo for the main pavilion, be kind of similar for a pre-manufactured restroom. The $17,000 that we have in there could go a long way towards, say, renovating the existing restroom. These are just some of the things that that why these things were in red, is that Drake already pointed out, you have existing pavilions that we could, in the next 2 years, leave in place and have the concept kind of marry up to. And if you wanted to build something new in the future, say 3 years from now or 2.5 years from now, we wouldn't necessarily have to work on those things right now. And it was also in an effort to, all of these red design items come along with associated construction costs, that if you were to start stripping things out of the design effort, those construction costs would be stripped out as well.
I think also, Jim, to your point about cost is one of the things that both Mead and Hunt and Strand will be helping us with, is product selection and what's kind of the base that we can do, and then what can be added to different amenities throughout the park that may add aesthetic value or maybe recreational value or something like that, but also comes with increased cost. And so as we go through this process, that'll be some of the decision points, is where does the council want to invest its dollars? What is not considered worth, an extra, and kind of what product selection we need to do in order to marry our vision with our budget. And so that is kind of something that they'll help us with, as well as they're coordinating and just talking with vendors and looking at potential products. Is, if we get to a point where we say, this might be nice, but we don't need it, what we can back off of that, or what can be added, what's important to the council ultimately.
When you're putting together your designs, do you take into account life expectancy? You say, like this building, well, how long is it going to last before we have to replace it? I know that most public buildings have an expected date of, it's past the point of repair, we're going to have to replace it, or the use is expected to expand to such great amount that it won't any longer accommodate what the expected use is. Have you any of those considerations?
Hi, Mark Sauer, Mead and Hunt. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the kind of the cost benefit that's run during the design process. I think adding into what they said, the biggest gap between the concept and what we'll move into a schematic design is, alongside the tree survey that's being done, is actual survey on the ground, right? So that puts things in real perspective as to where they are. And so marrying those two together, that's the big jump between concept. But we review the different building options that are out there. Generally speaking, new buildings, depending if you go cedar or if you go steel or if you go some composite, those are going to have different lifespans. That's something we can help you advise. I think that's why there are line items in there for all of the Mead and Hunt architectural services, because that takes a specific architect. Or if it's on the inside, it takes an interior designer, right? Lake Mills does not have those staff people that can necessarily review all of those things. And so in that way, Mead and Hunt and then Strand on the civil side are acting as your representatives to get you through this process. So part of that as well is the evaluation of the existing buildings, as Brandon's talking about. Our scope currently looks at replacing that restroom building, but if we want to evaluate it for its potential use, certainly we have those services. We can bring people out and have them do that, provide you with a cost, and then that's something that you all can weigh. That comes with time and potential amendments to the current scope in front of you. The current scope looks at the potential to eliminate it and provide a new building per the plan that was discussed previously. So,
I have a couple thoughts, just kind of continuing on what you brought up, Jim, which I thought was an excellent point. Related is the maintenance requirements for any new structures. We would want them to be ideally low maintenance so that they don't require a lot of work for our staff to maintain them over time. I'm looking at the first page of the combined memo where it has the 4 line items in red for our consideration. And I expressed this at previous meetings, so I guess I'll repeat it here. I would suggest that we not go ahead with design of parking lot B area. That's the east area, which is currently coincidentally level B. of the manufactured home community. I don't think I know yet whether we need that much more parking, or maybe we're going to want to put in a place for trailer campers. Maybe that's going to be a new revenue source. Maybe something else entirely that we haven't thought of yet, but I would recommend not funding the design of parking lot Area B at this time, but as Drake and Brandon have shared previously, assume that approximate surface area will be impervious so that our stormwater design, is done right the first time, and so then we can build something impervious there, whether it ends up being a parking lot in 5 or 10 years, or whether it ends up being, something else that involves hard surfaces. So that would be my leaning, is to not design the parking lot B at this time. I'm kind of torn on the restroom, because it was a strong recommendation of the Parks Board to have an updated restroom with showers for people to rinse off after swimming, and that's very appealing to me, and I think would be a nice amenity to have. The maintenance garage, I also think, is a must-have. Right now, our maintenance garage is quite small, and it's close to the lake, and it's not in a good location for our staff to work on, and it doesn't have water service. So I think the concept plan and where the maintenance garage would go, to me, that's a must-have. So I would hope that we would keep that in. And then the 2 new shelters, I'm not sure what to think about those. I guess it didn't occur to me that we could sort of redeploy the current shelters in a different location, that maybe that would reduce some design costs. So I'm not sure on that one. But I guess I would lean toward maybe not having the parking lot be designed at this time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the work that a lot of people have put into getting it this far. I do appreciate Drake, what you were saying a couple minutes ago, and I do agree that there's going to come a point where deciding what materials and what things look like is going to be a key decision point. But I don't think that we're at the point right now with design where we need to start making those sorts of cutting back decisions. I guess I largely agree with Lisa. In my mind, parking lot B is the only thing that was kind of up in the air after all of our planning sessions, that was kind of, it's an unknown, and we don't even know how long it's going to take to reclaim that land even. So I guess I would agree with Lisa, and I would lean also towards not including the parking lot B red line item, but all the rest of them, those are things that have been talked about, that have been parts of the plan, that are important to someone somewhere along the way. You can debate how integral any one of those things would be, but these are all things that have come up repeatedly and things that have made it into that last concept plan, and I am very excited to move ahead with all of this. And I'll eventually make a motion to approve this when we're done with discussion, minus the parking lot B line item.
On the parking lot design, it seemed like designing a parking lot's pretty simple compared to buildings. You got a big flat space out there, and we're going to pave it, I suppose, and paint it, and put a fence around it, whatnot, but would not seem to be very expensive as compared to structures. So how much would be saving by not putting in a design, which doesn't have to be executed, but just adding the design? I'm not sure I know how much.
The line item is $33,800.
Oh, okay, I see the line item, but you want to speak to that?
You're correct. That was the design fee for the parking lot B specifically. In terms of designing the parking lot, what we had built into our fee is there's going to be stormwater features. There's likely going to be lighting. There There may, depending on if we stick with the same parking payment features, there might be some elements of that in the design. It is, a lot of grading. Sure, you're taking a surface, you're flattening out, making sure the grades and the stormwater work. There's subsurface storm sewer that you have to lay out. But there's more to it, like in the parking lot A area, that included this food service or food truck like pedestal area that, there's going to be some element of a pedestal with electric service, and you got to design the electric lines to go out there, and do those pedestals have any lighting on them? These are all the things that we're sorting through when we design it. The parking lot A item, and I'm only saying this because it's twice as much as the parking lot B, included the two entry boulevard little roadways, and so there's quite a bit more there to the parking lot A area. But yeah, the parking lot B was the 33,000.
Sometime you can save money by going ahead with an economy of scale. You say, well, we're going to do parking lot A anyway. It's the same design questions are going to be asked about B. Would we save money by doing the whole thing now, or waiting and doing a piece later? Or as Mary suggests, maybe we don't, or as Lisa suggests, maybe we don't even need that later. And so then we'd just be wasting the money if we design something we're not going to use. But is there a savings to be achieved by designing the whole thing now, even though B is not executed, the design is not actually put in place?
I would say the biggest savings would be if you were to do, say, parking lot B on its own in the future, we would have to compile a whole bidding package just for that. And so compiling a project manual of specifications and contract documents and putting it out to bid and receiving the bid and distributing the contracts and all that stuff, that would be the biggest savings if you did it all as one big package.
Right.
There might be some small, let's call it a 10% design increase to design it separately, but it wouldn't be a substantial increase in design effort to design it separately, in my opinion.
So we're just saving $33,000 in effect.
Yeah.
Right.
At least as it relates to the services proposal that they put forward. So that would, because all of the costs to actually build it on a different document that had a high level estimate for what they could all in cost. And so that would be a line item that eventually would be removed if we pull it out here, it'll pull it out here. And as we refine the scope of the elements together, then this is a moving document on
Right.
how much it actually costs all in. I mean,
I think that's a very important point, that if we are authorized to move forward today, at various intervals, we would come back once we get to the higher level of detail with what we think the costs are. And so we'd start trimming, what had previously been provided was like a planning level. You build some contingency in, you're kind of guessing to some degree at what all these things, but then as you start to truly design it, those contingencies start to narrow down. And so we would be coming back to you with, we think this element is going to cost this, and this element is going to cost this, and then maybe that's at that time, say you were to move forward with some of the red items today, we could bring those forward to you and say, hey, we think this element is going to cost this, $100,000 or whatever, and you'd say, oh, well, looking at the total budget, maybe we do want to pull that one out. So we could, this will be an iterative, cost estimating exercise as we come back to you guys with improved plans.
Also, in addition to the initial cost of building the structures, design, and what, we have the recurring maintenance cost. Do your designs take into account the difference in maintenance cost over what you install? And I think you mentioned well, if you install wooden beat bleachers, that'd be different than steel, Where steel would cost more to install, you wouldn't have the constant repair that would be necessary if they were made out of wood. That kind of
Sure,
thing.
yeah.
So in your design, do you inform us of what you think that would be?
Talk about that some more? I mean, I could as well.
I'll start with it. I think we're always working from the foundation that longevity and low maintenance is a priority, along with, functionality and aesthetics, right? And so one of the things that we're working through is bringing you material samples or choices for design elements that meet those criteria, and winnowing it down from an infinite number to 2 or 3 that align with your design intent, and then the budgetary components of that. So yes, wood on its own, a lot of maintenance, looks nice, weather's, in a kind of nice character way, but, are there elements that need composite siding, or is it stone? Is it, as someone had said, steel or metal? Depends on those elements, right? And if there are steel elements, it's not raw steel. Are they powder coated? Are they, like, all of those kind of pieces come into that, as Brandon said, an iterative process of bringing materials that align with kind of your vision and your intent, and then with budget. But it's always looking at ensuring longevity, right? That kind of commercial grade elements, right? These are, whether it's door handles or lighting fixtures or whatnot, they have to handle the elements and the rigors of public use, right? So we're always working through that, and, working with your staff on what's easily maintained versus, not. It's, someone could say, well, we really should have permeable surfaces. Well, that's a great idea. However, can you maintain them? Do you have a vacuum to maintain permeable surfaces, right? That's a concern, right? Say, it's better to have a permeable surface, but if you need a $150,000 to $200,000 piece of equipment you don't own to make sure that you can maintain it the way it's intended to be, I don't know if that's a good design choice, right? So those are the things that we would be working through with you and the staff on making sure that it can be maintained in a proper fashion without being onerous to your staff.
If I could just follow up on that last point, and you started to touch on this, Dustin, but to me, it will be very important. I would expect that our consultants here will be working with staff and getting their input on what it's going to take to operate, any changes and new things that we do, because we don't want to be making decisions that are inadvertently creating a greater workload that we don't understand, So I do want to make sure that staff are fully engaged and, being given the opportunity to have input on those things as it goes along.
Absolutely. I think the kind of proposal that's been brought forward kind of assumes working with a select kind of committee to winnow things down, and then things come, looking at Drake on this, that come to the council when design decisions have been made by kind of a more nimble committee. But in that is being evaluated by the city staff to make sure it aligns with their expectations and their ability to maintain.
Yeah, so we'll be meeting regularly with Mead & Hunt and Strand from a staff perspective. I've also asked Mary to sit in on many of those meetings just to keep the council perspective in there. And so I think another thing to note on these proposals is that generally they're a not to exceed amount. So you're not going to see. We'll obviously keep costs down wherever we can, whenever possible. But on the flip side of that, I just want to reiterate the importance of decision making when it comes time for decisions to be made. So when we're working with them, we will, kind of start with design principles of longevity, maintainability, value. What is it that we can bring forward? Whether that's good, better, best options, or we're starting from this, and then the council can add on to it, add amenities. Structure supports. Do you want to clad them in brick? Things like that. We would start at kind of the base level and then bring decision points to the council that might add budget to something for something. The easiest thing for me to think about is, plazas. Plazas can look like lots of different things, lots of different materials. From, a standard concrete to pavers to colored concrete, all of those things. So some of those decisions we're going to have recommendations with then potential options for you that to kind of decide upon when we'll go through the process that kind of that staff, that committee went through, how we got to a point, and have a recommendation for you. But there, of course, will always be the city council's final decision on what something's going to look like and what's going to be incorporated. Now, with that said, as far as not to exceed, that's couched in that we're meeting the timelines that we've set for ourselves. So we can't hold, if we're not making decisions and we're adding work and we're telling them to go back and look at things and redesign things and redo things, that'll affect our timeline and that will affect our costs. And so I just want the council to be aware that it is incumbent upon us as the city, as the client, that we've set this aggressive schedule. We will have a lot of work in order to meet that, to keep our costs in line, as well as as well as get to implementation at the point that the council has said that they'd like to get to it.
But this resolution tonight is just to authorize you to execute task orders. I mean, we're not making the decisions as we go along on what materials we're going to use and what the design is.
There will be design decisions as you go along. This kicks
Not
off that
tonight,
pro-
on this
That's correct.
particular
Yeah,
resolution.
this is the first decision of many in the design and implementation phase that we're entering.
Just giving you the go-ahead.
Correct, that's right.
Mary, we haven't heard, I'm sure you've got questions and
Well,
comments.
sorry, I have some seasonal allergies, and I was over here trying to catch my breath for a while, so I was listening intently. But first of all, I super appreciate the amount of work that's gone into providing path forward in the roles and responsibilities. There are some overlap pieces that I know I'm expecting the two of you will have to work out, because I see vendors in two places, and I see some things that are not clear from the materials exactly when there's a problem, who is the one who's accountable for ensuring it's done, although I would say that, Brandon, you're kind of overall project manager, so I guess the overall big thing kind of goes with you. I think I can support pushing off the parking lot B as a secondary set of conversations at some point in time, provided that we can find an economical way to get the parking lot. If I had to put the money, or put our money somewhere, it wouldn't be making the parking lot I wouldn't put my money there. Like, how do we maximize the number of spaces in the spot we have and use our money to do the colored stamped concrete instead of concrete, or, to make it more on the citizen-centric amenities of the park. And so I think those are the design things I'm sure that we'll be addressing as we move forward. I would really like to challenge, I'm going to be in support of moving forward, so I appreciate, Greg, that you're kind of waiting for a motion here sometime. I'm going to support moving forward. I am concerned about the overall cost and finding ways that, and so I appreciate the conversation around the shelters. Our goals say updated, and, it doesn't say, everything doesn't say new, but it's updated. So I think the vision for me is refreshing, and new can be the way we refresh if there is a remodel that is cost-effective and smart. I'd like to hear about it, but I don't know that I'm opposed to new bathroom as an example. And so, I'm intrigued by other possibilities to do things to get what we want, but do them in a less costly fashion. Again, the things that are not citizen-centric amenities. And then even those citizen-centric ones, we are a very small city, and I am worried that I want to start modest in cost and add bells and whistles versus starting big and then having to dial back. I'm being very mindful of I know this was really high level and it had the initial numbers that we proved the concept on, but if we can start in a position of really being mindful on our spend and then adding as we find that we want to enhance, I think that would be my recommendation on when we get down to the points of detail. And then speaking of detail, I just wanted to share, City Council, we're going to have some running to do if we're going to stick by the schedule. And I should say City Council, I know it's this group out here in Drake, but the 30% design milestone actually is end of September. And so that in the sheet had a lot of items that I don't know what specifically, if I had to look at a timeline, what needs to be stated, but I think we all need to be prepared that each meeting we should or could have things that we need to rally around to make sure we don't miss the timeline, because every time that we miss a meeting, it's 2 weeks, and that puts, because we have end of September, and then we have middle of November for 60, and then our January is 90%, middle of 90, so that's a lot of refinement so that we're ready to go with some work in 27. So I'm excited. I think I'm worried about the money refinement of the investment, but I'm confident we're going to have a really great work product when we're done if we can get all of the things you're all managing buttoned up and pulled together.
Well, assuming we give you the authority under 2668 to execute task orders, how often do you have to come back and say, okay, I'm going to give a task order for this, but I need to get city council approval for it? Or do you have a great deal of discretion about what orders you issue?
It won't be a task order that'll come back to you. What'll come back to you is what should ultimately be incorporated into the design. So, for example, for I guess the food service pavilion is the easiest one, right? There might be different products or different amenities or different features that could be added to it, from, a base model that we're looking at to what should that look like. So, Mark might be able to, expand on it more, but what we'll need to do is regular check-ins to make sure that our kind of design committee isn't going in the wrong direction, kind of a check-in with the city council that we are heading in the direction you want us to head in, and that the bid package that's ultimately being created here is reflective of what the goals and vision of this body are. Mark, did you have anything?
So I was going to add to somewhat address, Mary, your initial sentiment there was one of the first things we're going to do, and we've already undertaken it to help reduce our costs, to understand what architectural services we need to include or not include, is we're going to look at that concessions pavilion. And we've already got the request out for a couple quotes on the building with a restroom attached. So concession one end, a covered seating area, and a restroom on the far end, so it's all attached linearly. We have a second request out for take the restroom off of that. So that's a starting place for us to start to evaluate the building itself. That'll help lend the conversation to, well, if we're within price and we think it can be delivered on schedule and under budget or on budget, then maybe we proceed with removal of the existing restroom. If we're way off, which we don't think we will be, but that would start the conversation of, okay, should we look at preserving the existing restroom, and what does that mean then? So those are the types of decisions that'll probably come back, but they'll hit the committee first. Our job is to bring you guys good news, so that's obviously our target.
Yeah, we like good news.
This is a very small issue, and maybe this is something that comes forward when we get to 30%, 60%, so forth. But in the volleyball courts, there was a reference, I think, Brandon in the Strand, to lighting. And we don't currently have lighting, and I don't think that was recommended by the Parks Board, although it was discussed, and I think some of the volleyball players would like it. So I'm assuming that isn't anything that would, that would have to be
Fencing is-
clarified tonight, but I just want to know if
fencing
that's something
also.
we can talk about moving forward.
We're gonna start from a base level of simply courts.
Okay.
And then there will be a conversation at some point in the future with the city council on whether you want to add lighting, whether you want to add fencing, whether you want to have 4 courts, reduce it to 3 courts.
Perfect.
So
So we
I
can
guess-
talk about all those elements
when
as we start moving.
My general stance on this will be starting, as a committee, is starting at a base level and then trying to bring to city council, these are the amenities that you can add, but making sure that we're not starting at a point where we're bringing you the high end and then backing off of that, but showing you like this is what we can do, and then is there room or is there a desire to add amenities to a feature as we continue on.
Perfect, sounds like just the right process,
Yeah,
thank you.
fences were another one on viable
Yep.
courts, because that was out of scope for the Parks Board, but that doesn't mean we all don't think that they're needed or
Yeah.
wanted. Yeah. Same thing with lighting.
Well, to get this moving along, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2668, authorizing the city manager to execute task orders as read.
We were,
You can, if a second is made, you can offer amendments if someone was interested in removing parking
I
lot
would-
B
okay,
or.
I'll second the motion, and I would like to make an amendment. At the end of the, now therefore be it resolved, at the very end after it says for the design of Sandy Beach Improvement Project, I'd like to add the words, removing the $33,800 engineering design services red line item for parking lot B.
So then that's a motion to amend, which then requires a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend, and that is in the resolution. I'm going to pull up the resolution. In the now therefore be it resolved section to remove the $33,800 line item reflecting the
Do you want me to?
Part B. Could you please read it?
Yeah.
Yep.
The whole thing then would be it resolved by the City Council of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, that the city manager is authorized to execute a task order with Strand Associates and Mead and Hunt for the design of the Sandy Beach Improvement Project, removing the $33,800 engineering design services red line item for parking lot B.
Okay,
So now you're voting on strictly the amendment.
just the amendment.
May I just also comment that I think the number is incorrect in the resolution. It says 25 and it should be 26. So just a
Yes, I
scrivener's
think
error,
we-
just to correct
Yeah,
that.
you had caught that. Yep, I think you have that, Misty.
Yes, I did catch before the meeting and corrected on this one, so it's just the
Super.
online.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, a motion by Greg Coos for the amendment and a second by Lisa Curler on the amendment. So a roll call on the amendment, please.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, and so now, do we need to,
You have a motion, now
We
you
have
have
a
a motion
motion.
as amended.
a motion from Jim Bartlett as amended?
Correct.
Okay. So we have,
Second.
I just have one other question on the lines of whether this is a scrivener's error or not. The final resolution says execute a task order. Would there be one task order or is it one for each firm?
There'll be separate task orders with
Okay.
each firm.
So just
Suppose-
task order
execute
with
task
Stan and our
orders.
task order with Mead and Hunt, so it can,
Sure.
To make sure that's clear that it's two task orders. I think the other parts of the resolution say that, refers to it in the plural. But the
Right.
title
I
doesn't.
suppose I wrote it as a task order with Mead and Hunt and a task order with Strand and Associates, so it sounded different in my head.
Yeah, well, also
Do you want an
the-
amendment, or can that be, I think Dan would say that would be scrivener's
yeah,
errors.
yes,
Okay,
there's a
so
clear
refer
intent.
to plural task orders.
The penultimate paragraph, whereas these task orders
Yeah.
will be funded, indicates there is
Yeah.
more than one.
Yeah, we'll make that correction in the language. We'll call it grammatical.
so right now, we have a motion by Jim Bartlett for the amended resolution.
And you already have
We have a
Mr. Coots'
motion and a
second.
Oh,
second.
and Greg, you
yeah.
can second, okay, thank you.
And
And
then
I
we
have a
amended
second
that,
by
yeah.
Greg Coots. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
joining us this
We are
evening and for,
Very excited for this, to see this
Us
moving
too.
forward.
yes.
So excited.
Okay, so next we have ordinance 1293. Misty.
Ordinance 1293, an ordinance annexing territory to the city of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1293, which is the petition for annexation from John Zimmerman.
Mr. Coots will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Lisa Curler, a second by Greg Coots. Any discussion on this petition for annexation?
Is there any other information from staff that we need that we haven't heard before?
There's no new information from the first reading. If there's questions, we're happy to answer them. it's largely, for the plans of what they'd like to do, annexation is essentially necessary, as it would be impractical or impossible for them to accomplish it under county zoning in which they're under, as well as there are connection to the water utility as well. So staff recommends approval.
And then I can also add that the Department of Administration did respond back and found it in the public interest. They did note it in the legal description. They found one directional error, which has been resolved. So
Great.
everything's set on our end.
Okay, then we'll do a roll call, please.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is ordinance 1294. Misty.
Ordinance 1294, amending City of Lake Mills Code, Chapter 660 zoning regulations, Section 660-52, Sub A, Sub 1, Sub A, single-family districts, and Chapter 660, Attachment 2, Table of Bulk Regulations, lot minimum area and lot minimum area per dwelling unit.
Okay, this is our first reading. I would like to make a motion to skip the second reading and move this to third reading this evening.
Mr. Coots will second, but I believe we're going to have discussion still on this, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Coots will second.
Okay, so motion to move to third reading by Mary Schmager and a second by Greg Coots.
Now you can have discussion on the merits of waiving the readings, but not necessarily discussion on the ordinance itself. So the matter before you is whether to waive the readings, at which point then you would proceed to discussing the ordinance if you waive the readings.
So what is what is your interest in waiving readings
So
and
my
and voting
interest-
on it tonight?
My interest in waiving the readings, and actually all three of these, the next three ordinance, 1294, 95, and 96, is that they are, in my viewpoint, not citizen-centric. They are, I would say, cleaning up some language that is very confusing for contractors or others who are trying to do business with the city and with the word approximate in there. And so I was just moving them to make a decision so that we can have them recorded in the
Doesn't seem to
record
be
as we
anything
find.
controversial about it. In fact, we spent time in Plan Commission going over these things. So it's
It's more routine.
revisiting it tonight for me anyway. But it's just sort of cleaning up these wishy-washy words, of approximately, and which are always tricky to put in a legal document when you don't know what approximately means. So it got the full vote of the Plan Commission, of course.
So I
support-
see two different proposals within this ordinance proposal, and one of
Just the
them
reading.
meets what you just described about getting rid of the word approximately, the other one does not.
the-
And so that's where I guess I'm
Okay.
trying to
I-
understand why
Well, and
we need to move forward.
I would have preferred doing the discussion in a second order. The two go together, and I will explain how they go together.
Okay.
Well, I do have a question about the numbers of readings. What's the purpose of having, if you have 50 people in the room, all with different opinions and all, you want another reading and another reading to make sure that the public is fully informed, but whereas essentially it's just a wording cleanup, what's the point of having 3 readings?
So I think that I'm channeling Greg Waters here, because he was always a fan of making sure that we had all 3 readings. It's to make sure that there's full opportunity for the public to be aware that we're making these changes and have an opportunity to
Yeah.
comment, I think.
And to that point, I can't imagine that there would be citizens who would object to this, but who knows? Certainly, if it was something that were likely to be controversial, like golf course or something of that sort, then you want to have as much opportunity as possible. But for something that's essentially a cleanup of wording to make it more clear.
Well, maybe we should proceed with the
So-
voting on the motion to waive the second reading and go to the third reading, and then we can discuss further.
Can discuss the
what
subject.
these are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so then roll call on the motion to move to third reading on ordinance 1294.
Ms. Curler?
No.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1.
Okay, so then could we read I think we have to read the ordinance and then we will be discussing the ordinance itself as a third reading.
Ordinance 1294, amending City of Lake Mills Code, Chapter 660 zoning regulations, Section 660-52, Sub A, Sub 1, Sub A, single-family districts, and Chapter 660, Attachment 2, Table of Bulk Regulations, lot minimum area and lot minimum area per dwelling unit.
Okay, so
And it-
discussion.
Yeah, I'll start off with this one. I'll take this one. There's a series of three of these ordinances. This one was directly because of some of the comments that were made in council meetings where when staff has had contact with people who were, with developers, there was debate over what the word approximately meant. Initially, I think the idea might have been, well, approximately 12 might be, 12.1 is approximately 12, and you would get developers pushing and saying, 14 is really not that much more than 12. And when you have the word approximately, and it has the idea, there's wiggle room there, which is tough to define. So this was an attempt to help give staff a clear line that they can very clearly say to developers, no, this is where we're sitting at. So the changes in section 1, the changes to the text of the ordinances is literally just removing the word approximately every time it appears. When you go down to section 2, this is where it's revising the table of bulk regulations. And there is a bit of history behind this too. This is something that I've learned was a fairly common practice, that when some of these calculations were being done, you would kind of use round numbers and say, oh, that's close enough. Which is kind of how you get the word approximately, because 1 acre is approximately 40,000 square feet. So then, 40,000 divided by 4 is approximately 10,000 square feet. All this is doing in this section is replacing the approximate numbers with the exact numbers that you get when you use a 43,560 square foot acre. So it's just doing that and replacing the math with the exact number instead of an approximate number. It originally wasn't in my first draft, and as it went to staff, that was something that staff came back with and said, if we're removing the word approximately, we can also clean up this calculation to help better define approximately, because otherwise you have, you're saying exactly, but then you still have some wiggle room with this measurement, and this measurement becomes exact as well then.
Yeah, Dustin did have some input at the Plan Commission as far as when the zoning code was kind of implemented, and that, it's not uncommon to use a 40,000 square foot acre, but then it does lead to these kind of rounding errors and approximations. And so it's kind of, as it's been brought up, a decision of the city council, approximately 12 can cause issues. It was asked at the Plan Commission, I believe, by Mr. Bartlett, what could a downside be? And it would, really the downside is that if you got a proposal that was 12.2 units per acre, that's clearly prohibited now. But the flip side is that it removes any argument, right? So 14, most people would say, is certainly not approximately 12. Is 13, is 12.5? Does it stop at 12.4? That's kind of the conversation that is ongoing. And I think where this might be important to the city council is that if someone is applying for a development under straight zoning, meaning they're not asking for anything, then the interpretation is ultimately vested in the city manager's office. And so what does approximately mean to me or to the next city manager, whoever that might be? And so those projects get approved administratively because if you meet all of the requirements of zoning, it doesn't need plan commission or city council approval. They have an entitlement to build something. And so I think this is, by removing approximately, the city council is making clear that this is the density per acre that we are comfortable with. So does it remove some discretion? Yes, but it also provides clarity. So I guess that's how I would describe it.
But also, even though you don't have the discretion, if a builder comes in and said, well, I want to have 10,895 square feet, and you say, I don't have the authority to permit that, but you can go to the zoning appeals board, correct?
That's correct. You can apply for a variance, or you could submit for a planned development district and request
Well, it doesn't take away,
relaxation.
it's not a hard and fast number. It just makes it clean for decision-making purposes, and there's still a route to a difference of opinion by going to another board.
That's correct. There is a process available to individuals looking for relaxation or exceptions.
I'm absolutely in support of Section 1. That just gives clarity and certainty to anyone who is applying and to our staff in enforcing the regulations. I just want to understand further about the changes in the square footage. So this would apply to, say, a large subdivision that somebody's coming in, and that would, 10,890 square feet would be the minimum lot size for a single-family lot. Would it also apply if somebody has a 2-acre property and they just want to split it in two, or they want to carve off a piece, that they would need to now meet these new bulk regulation lot sizes, whereas in the past, 10,000 would have been what was allowed? And then, I guess one other thought before Dustin answers is it creating any nonconformity? Are we creating now a whole bunch of 10,000 square foot lots that don't conform to our ordinance? And does that create any problems for those lot owners?
I'm going to start with the last part on the nonconformity. I'm not sure. That's the short answer. By and large, I don't think we'll have a lot of nonconformities because we didn't really get close on, I'll pick on the Mangan development that just had their PIP approved at Plan Commission. That is R312, and though it's a planned development district, and could have, under the old rules, up to 14 and a half if you're really being like on the square footage per unit. They came in under 10, for example, and that's 134 units, okay? That has typically been the issue with multifamily development. The new code has certainly raised the bar on the requirements for site design, right? Amenities that are required. There are certain setbacks, green space requirements, et cetera. It really is hard to push the envelope on that. The only one that's going to be very close would be the new Tyranina Park apartments. They will be because you sold them an acre of land, they'll be under 12 units an acre. I think that's going to be the closest one of the ones that I can think of in recent years that have been approved, right? We have Paul Giusti's Summer Ridge. You have the North Oak down on South on 89. You have next to that the Drumlin Crossing. All of those are well below that acreage that density standard. So I don't believe so, but I can't say with certainty what it's done to some like Cherokee Path or something along those lines where you have like an 8 unit on a piece of property. We haven't done that math, so it's possible on that. As Drake said about the overall with the square footages, it is much more definitive now, right? It's a very clear math problem to work with a developer and say, this is the requirement, you must be below this threshold unless you go one of these other avenues. I don't think it's going to stifle development at all. But it is very clear on what you can and can't do, right?
Do you anticipate would we have any issues on the single-family home side? I don't think we have. Our recently approved subdivisions, I don't think would have an issue with a 10,890 minimum square foot.
No, yeah, so where it started skewing is when you get to higher density requirements, right? Like the 12 units an acre in the R312, right? When you're at 4 units an acre, it was technically 4.3 units an acre, right? And your single-family developments have readily come in under 4 units an acre. That has not been an issue. We don't have that much two-family development, so that usually isn't usually like the problem area. I know there's a couple of 3 units out there, the new one that was built by it's being built by the elementary school. That may be one because it's on a smaller piece of land. Usually when you have larger tracts of land, it has not been an issue, especially for the duplex properties. But we'd have to go back and look. Again, that would make them legal non-conforming by area. The setbacks aren't changing. That's usually the bigger issue that you would have on a non-conformity issue. So hypothetically, if an existing development, I'll just pick on a duplex somewhere in there, now finds itself not meeting the density requirement, but meets all the setback requirements, it would be allowed to rebuild under the current codes and under state statute. So
Thank you.
I have one question. I'm always interested in opposing views. I mean, we represent all the citizens of the city, and if there are strong opposition to something and they're not discussed, then we may not take that into account. If you were arguing in favor or against this resolution, are there any good reasons why not? It seems to me to be common sense. I voted for it on the Plan Commission, and I didn't hear any reason not to. So could you know of any reason why?
Drake mentioned it. Latitude is sometimes nice on, when you're a tenth or a couple tenths of points of density away. It's nice to have a little bit of latitude, especially with how the code has functioned with getting the type of character of development that you've expected. But, when you're talking the R1, 4, 6, and 8s, those are such negligible amounts, it would be very surprising if they're not going to stifle. Developers are going to go, oh, now it's 800 square feet more for a single family. That's not the issue. When they're trying to hit a market, they're usually trying to be larger than that anyway. So I don't see that as being a problem for you. Our R18s are in I'll say the kind of historic, kind of around the downtown area. Those were smaller properties when they were platted 75, 80 years ago. So, no, I don't think we're going to have a developer that's going to say, well, that's just, ridiculous. I don't see those issues. It has really been in the time of 1, maybe 2 projects, I'm going to hit Drake on this, where somebody on the multifamily side has kind of pushed the density issue. And I'll say for the one project specifically that's under construction now, the density number was the difference between being able to provide a clubhouse or not being able to provide a clubhouse, right? And having on-site full-time management, right? Those are amenities. They need to hit a certain threshold on number of units to support that kind of administrative cost and operational cost. So I'll say it didn't negate the project. It just, and they didn't say they were going to walk away from the project. It just meant that it doesn't pencil out to have a full-time on-site person or to maybe build a very expensive clubhouse for those residents, right?
By the way, did the decision of the zone review board come to us after they meet? Let's say a developer says, well, I need this much more space. And normally it would have been the city manager's discretion to allow it, because it's approximately what it was before. So they go to them and they say, yeah, we would approve that. Does that come to us then?
It does not. No, when something's at the administrative design review level, they meet all the code requirements, it gets handled, by Drake, under Drake with all the department managers for the various disciplines. But it wouldn't come to you. Same if someone went to Board of Appeals, that is separate from you. That's a quasi judicial body. So
So essentially, it's just shifting a decision from city manager to the Board of Appeals if somebody disagrees with what the city manager says, or, well, not what he says, but what it is in the.
which has been the case for all bulk regulations elsewhere. It was just that the use of a 40,000 square foot acre, just because that was very common, right? People, if I polled people in the room, how many people know how many square feet are an acre? Maybe a lot, but it's not a common, doesn't roll off the tongue. 43,560, it just doesn't. It's like feet in a mile. And so communities across the country just used 40,000 square feet. And then you, as Jake had mentioned, you have these rounding errors on ease of application more than anything, so.
I guess, well, the one addition I'd give is the city council retains the right to challenge a zoning board of appeals decision in circuit court. So they're a quasi judicial separate entity. I can't say it's common that it occurs, but it has occurred. And so if the city council thought the zoning board of appeals was improperly approving variances to something, the city council can challenge that in circuit court and essentially defend its zoning code.
I've seen it one time in 30 years. But any person aggrieved by a decision of the Board of Appeals can appeal to the circuit court. It's not just city council. It could be anybody in the community.
I'll call the question and ask that we move to a vote.
So I don't have a motion on that. I don't believe we have a motion on the table
Right.
for this particular ordinance.
You all right?
Correct.
Then I will make a motion to approve ordinance 1294.
Okay, we have,
Seconded.
we have a motion by Lisa Curler, a second by Jim Bartlett. And so we'll do a roll call, please.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Next, we have ordinance 1295. And this is a first reading.
Ordinance 1295, amending City of Lake Mills Code, Chapter 660, Attachment 2, Table of Bulk Regulations, R3-12, minimum floor area.
Can we have discussion on the first reading before?
You can. Yep.
Okay. So, ordinance 1295, let me get my tabs up here. Oh, yeah, there. Thanks. This one was something that, as I served on the Plan Commission for years and years before being elected to council, this was something that would come up relatively often. Right now, it's not exactly an apples-to-apples comparison because there are the overlay districts on top of the projects right now, but when we look at something like the Century redevelopment or the Bayberry, those multifamily developments, they have apartments that are smaller than 800 square feet. With the Century redevelopment, the developer even told us that, those studio apartments, those are the most popular ones. We sell out of those first, and those are the ones that we have to have. So this ordinance is an attempt just to allow for a little more flexibility and allow for a greater variety in housing products that we're offering by being able to offer smaller apartments. The old border of, the old division, sorry, I don't have the right word. But the 800 square feet per dwelling unit that it used to be, that still is in there, but as an average for the overall development. So it keeps someone from building just a whole bunch of really small apartments. There's still, which again, I think matches up with some of the council's long-term goals of having the variety of products available to people. 500 square feet was picked because that was the size of some of the, non-traditional dwellings that are in our code, the mother-in-law units or I think trailer homes, or something like that. Some of those things. 500 square feet seemed to be kind of a minimum of this is how small we want to go. So that seemed like a good minimum for any one apartment, as long as the overall development stayed at 800 square feet per dwelling unit. So that was the concept behind this one. It's something that developers, I saw for years on Planning Commission, developers asking for this sort of thing.
Can I ask Greg a question?
go ahead, Lisa.
Or staff? I'm just curious if you had a chance to look at how other communities deal with this, because I think one of the things we learned through a couple of these is that, there are other communities that have more modern ordinances, and I don't know if this was a way of handling it with having the averages or just making a smaller number generally.
Yeah, Dustin may have some information on other communities. I think what I'll say is our current code doesn't really contemplate that the market was looking for studio apartments. And so those smaller square footages weren't something that had been coming to the city until recently. And so this is kind of a market-driven, kind of a reaction to what the market is telling us as to what they would build. But Dustin, do you have insight on other communities allowing smaller square footages by right?
You are seeing that more and more, especially when people are trying to have a more urban product. It's not as much in I'll say the traditional suburban apartment complex, but when you want a more urban, something more vertical, yes, it is a much, Economawalk, Wauwatosa, you're seeing it in Mequon even, that they're allowing this. I would say that the standard that was in there, you have I'll say a more contemporary code. We updated it a few years ago. Yes, once in a while there's some patches to it, but previous community sentiment or council sentiment was bring forward the previous code on apartments, which is why you see the minimums that were established in it and also the parking requirements, which I know is another item in here. So I do think lowering it to 500 square feet, we saw that. I know the Vanguard project didn't go forward, but it had that, again, with much larger 1, 2, and 3 bedroom products in there. Same with the Century development by Hovde. There are other projects I think that this could really benefit, where someone might be looking to do, maybe it's a triplex, but 2 regular kind of size and a smaller mother-in-law. I think this really does enable some flexibility, especially trying to capture some missing middle. But communities have been going in this direction about looking at the overall project rather than saying, this is the minimum threshold and everybody's got to fit within it, right? Because everybody's socioeconomically is very different and their needs are different. So this does accommodate that.
I do really like this, Greg, and I think that, like you said, it does give a lot of flexibility. I think there also, quote-unquote, relief valve might be a planned development district. So like for the cottage
Right.
hotel would not meet even with this change,
Right.
because I think all of theirs are under 800, but then they were able to accomplish their project through a planned development district. So that still is another mechanism.
I also want to take this opportunity to throw Mr. Ryan Grady under the bus because I was looking at other cities' codes, and I honestly don't remember what it was that I saw because Planning Commission didn't meet for the last 3 months. So it was a while ago, and I blame
was a
Ryan.
while
I
ago.
don't.
It's
I
okay.
don't remember what I
That's
saw
funny.
when I was looking at those.
I have my standard question. It seems like a very good idea, and I voted for it at Plan Commission, but what do you know, either you or staff, about who would be opposed to this and why? We got the pro, what's the con?
I think there are just some that are opposed to apartment projects generally. I think that comes into play. I think sometimes we forget that at different stages in our lives, maybe you're looking for a certain housing product or a certain location, and you're not there, don't need a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, and, young person, this is a very appealing, and it could even be very appealing to an older person who just wants a nice contemporary space. So
What do you think would be the result if we had no minimum standard? And the ordinance was just revoked, repealed, so there's no minimum standard. Would people be building little cubby houses or?
I'm looking at Troy first. There are minimum requirements for habitable space per the state building code. So there wouldn't be, there's still a minimum, but yes, it could open the door to some things I don't think you might be prepared for, right? The small cottages aren't bad, but if suddenly someone wants to buy a piece of land that's zoned appropriately and wants to stick a bunch of 120 square foot tiny houses on there, not that that's bad, but that does need a certain amount of planning and kind of other design criteria. I think that's the potential for the abuse to the application.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so this was our first reading. Thank you for the conversation, everyone. Anything else on this particular item? Okay, next, oh,
Did you want to?
no, we'll just
Okay.
move it on.
All right.
But thank you. Next, we will have ordinance 1296. It's also a first reading.
Ordinance 1296, amending City of Lake Mills Code, Chapter 660 zoning regulations, Section 660-41, off-street parking, Table 2.4, specific off-street parking requirements, apartments, minimum required spaces.
And this is another one that came from my time on Planning Commission. This was a very common request that we would hear. Again, this is something that with the overlays that get put on, this is a pretty common thing that gets adjusted for. This is just moving the required minimum spaces of 2 per unit down to 1.5 per unit. This also does not factor in the fact that there also is a half space per unit guest spot that also is still in play. So effectively, it's moving from 2.5 down to 2, but it's the way it's written, it's moving from 2 down to 1.5. The reasons for doing this, it's just in general, parking regulations are written for, in the past, have been written for the busiest possible time and trying to pack as many cars as possible in. And this is a trend that you see in cities now to roll back some of these parking restrictions and not requiring quite as many spaces. As I was looking around, I found lots of studies, but most of them were from much larger cities and not really comparable to Lake Mills. Most of the larger cities were pushing parking requirements back much further than a space and a half. Most of them were pushing it down to 1.2 or 1. I think I saw one that was even like 0.8 spaces per unit. So I think that's probably too far. But the types of requests that staff seems to get and that developers come to us with usually wind up in this kind of a ballpark where you're looking at about a space and a half per unit. So this would just be changing the code to kind of better match that. Again, I think, having less impermeable surface is, going to be good. Not having to pave quite as much is going to allow, it's going to be a slight cost savings. It's going to allow for a slightly more flexible building plan of what they want, of what a developer wants to do with the space by not tying it up just with paved parking lots. So that's the genesis of this one. That's where this came from.
I have a question about the apartment complex we already authorized, approved, here at Century. What are how many parking units do they have per?
They come in I'm working from memory, they come in somewhere around maybe slightly over 1.5 stalls per unit. Again, they have studios to 3-bedroom. They have, 99 units, but I think they have about 80 underground, and then they have the remainder on surface parking. I think this is a place where we're relying on the developer to know their market, but still having a floor, like there's still a minimum for you, that someone's not trying to not build any enclosed parking. We are seeing communities go down to 3/4 of a covered stall because of that transportation choice has changed so dramatically in the last 10 years, and especially in the last 5 years, that not every household is a two-car household anymore. And so, but for across the street, they would fall into this threshold. The Wangard development would have fallen in this threshold. They were about 1.47 stalls per unit. And that seems to be the direction that many communities are going in. I think this is a safe direction where you're not, as Mr. Cruz said, you're reducing the need to kind of pack in stalls where they aren't necessary. Developer is going to make sure his project is profitable and enticing to his customer base. So they're going to make sure he has the amenities they need. But overbuilding just to overbuild is not a great plan. And I think our developers, I think you've seen that with the recent like Mangan development and the Tyrena Park developments. I think that they're a good mix, but they meet the existing code requirements. But reducing that, I think, opens the doors to projects.
One other question here, it says required spaces. You don't define what a space is. And I was at a hotel a couple days ago where you could hardly open your doors. The spaces were so narrow that you're banging into it. Obviously, they wanted to pack more spaces in there.
There is a minimum requirement elsewhere in the code that spells out 9 foot by 18 foot is the minimum.
That's in a different,
Yes,
Part of the
yeah,
code.
that's a different code section on the,
okay. thank
it
you.
defines drive aisles, it defines space length by whether you're a 90-degree, 60-degree, 30-degree, angle parking. So all of that is elsewhere in the code.
Okay.
I have a question, just as I'm thinking about specifically the change from your comment about a lot of households not having 2 cars any longer. Is it influenced by the other alternative transportation modes? I think of Lake Mills. We don't have Ubers. We have a taxi, but we don't have a bus line. We're a commuter city. A lot of people drive out of the city to do have their occupations. And so in my mind, I'm asking myself, is 2 plus, and kids are all driving to school these days, like nobody takes the bus, especially when you're in high school, it's not cool anymore, at least in the Midwest. But is it really dependent on city specifics, or can it apply, how does this apply to, like, in our situation? Because I would think 2 or more is more what we would need, but we're going to 1.5, which is the opposite direction, just when I'm trying to rationalize.
It's a few things. One, single-family development is very different than multifamily development, especially with children. Multifamily does, I'll look at the Mangan, Rock Creek Apartments, the first 3 phases, 144 units and had about a dozen kids, right? That's very different than what you would see in single-family, right? So that's one issue where, yes, if you're in a single-family product, single-family home, with 2 adults and a child or 2, and then their driving age, yeah, it's very common that's going to probably be a 3-vehicle household. People who are looking for a certain type of multifamily product, I'll pick on the Hovde development. They're looking for people who want urban living. People want to be downtown. They want to be proximate to entertainment, but they may work from home predominantly, so they don't need to go somewhere. Or one works from home and one commutes, right? And so, right, you're down to 1 car and they don't need it. Many people choose the quality of life that a Lake Mills provides to them, right? Where if you had to bicycle across the community, it's not that far, right? I mean, you want to be able to get to certain things. So people are, just by choice, we just didn't have a housing product for people who wanted to live in the downtown, right? We just didn't have that. You only had apartments out on the periphery. We still have that, but now bringing stuff downtown is very exciting for housing choice, and not just for young people, but for older people who. You have a lot of people in the community that are choosing to rent because they want to be in this community, right? And so that product, it's not that they want to drive everywhere. They do want to be able to walk or bike in
Yeah, I'm just
places.
thinking about realities around people's occupations. We don't have the largest industrial and e-commerce like in our city, and so people have to get out to get, many people have to get out. And so I was just asking the question about our specific situation, given that we are, lovely in between Madison, Milwaukee, and, more of a commuter city in some regards, that 1.5, it's just something I've been just pondering about is all.
Yeah,
I'm just-
I can rediscover. I believe I did this a couple years ago, but I believe even in Jefferson County and in comparable kind of situated communities, we have a more strict parking requirement than most of them.
Okay.
And because in practice, what we're requiring right now is 2.5 stalls per unit.
Okay.
What this does is it takes us to essentially 2 stalls per unit because of that half a unit of guest parking.
Gotcha.
And
Thank you.
so you can imagine not every unit has a guest every day. And so functionally, we are building in overcapacity of what we're kind of expecting from the people who live there in order to accommodate a certain number of visitors. So we still, this code still requires 2 stalls per unit to be built because it's not changing the requirement of a half stall per unit for visitors. So I can bring that back and dig it out of my files. But when I looked at Jefferson County specifically, we were on we were requiring more parking than most of the region did.
Okay. Well, that's helpful, that we really are more 2 with the half. That's really helps clarify kind of my thinking. Thank you.
That was a legacy code requirement. That came from the old code and was just brought forward because that was what was expected when we updated the code, that's what the community was expecting for multifamily at the time.
I think this language change or this situation could also be paired with the prior ordinance that we looked at related to apartment sizes. And so just like with Hovde, we've had other projects that have come forward where there's a variety of unit sizes. And if some of those are studios at 600 square feet, they're probably only going to have 1 car. And so then to say 2,
Yeah.
2 per unit, I mean, I had one developer say to me a couple of years ago, we're just, if you require it, we'll build it, but our experience is they'll be vacant, and then it's just a bunch of concrete. So like to Greg's point, why have more impervious surface built than what really is needed?
Points. Thank you.
Call the question.
Any other discussion on this? This again was a first reading. Okay, then we will move on. We have another first reading ordinance, 1297. Ms. T.
Ordinance 1297, amending City of Lake Mills Ordinance Section 660-44, official zoning map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, parcel identification number 2460714181400, owner Real Hope Community Church, 1345 Stonehenge Lane, Lake Mills, Wisconsin.
Okay. Troy, do you want to share some?
Yeah, I'll give you a little
Ideas.
bit of history here. Real Hope submitted this application to us. They are in the concept stages. They're going to probably propose an addition to the building and to some parking. What this did was triggered us to try to bring this parcel into compliance. When this church was built, it was prior to a right deering when we were redoing our zoning ordinance, and it still holds the designation of rural development. And to be honest with you, even if this project doesn't come to fruition, it would benefit the city to have this parcel be brought into compliance anyway with the R14, with the PIO overlay. But that's really what's triggering this, is they are heavily leaning towards doing an addition over there. Plan Commission did approve this unanimously. There was a little bit of discussion. There were some people here that were thinking the R14 was meaning they were going to start building homes on that property, which I completely understand. I probably should have made that a little bit clearer, but And then there was a couple of questions about stormwater. There were some people that were saying they lived on Crestview there that said they have a drainage easement and they'd had some water issues when they first moved in. And we're gonna just try to make sure that we, as a city, make sure that the stormwater management didn't affect those homes when the addition and the parking was built.
Lisa?
So just a follow-up question for clarification. So if I understand this, we have these from time to time. This ordinance is just to change the zoning on the property to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan, right? So we're not, any action that we take on this ordinance, we're not approving the building expansion or the parking lot expansion or anything else that would be
100%, yeah, there's
Okay.
nothing getting approved building-wise. This is just changing the zoning
just
designation.
changing the zoning,
Yep.
and it would bring it in line with our comprehensive
And
plan.
with our zoning code, churches aren't permitted under rural development. So it's actually a legally non-conforming use.
Yeah, it's funny how that got missed.
So I guess for anybody who was concerned, if there was a decision to cut off, parcel out for single-family home residential development, there would be another process involved in that. So you'd have to plat that if a piece of this was sold in the future or something like that. So there would be another opportunity for someone to comment on it. That's not what's contemplated by the applicant. They need the overlay in order to do an expansion. Without the overlay, they cannot expand because they are not allowed to expand their non-conformance.
Are they under any kind of a proposed schedule of when they would like to get going on their expansion?
I have not seen any time frame yet. I think they were gonna try to baby step through this, get through the zoning, and then, once this process was done, they were gonna get a little bit more serious about concept. I believe he said it was gonna be a next summer, next
Next
spring
year,
project,
okay.
so they got some time.
Okay, so we have this one moving on to our next agenda, along with several, the last two ordinances as well, all as first readings, moving on to our next agenda.
I would like to make a motion on ordinance 1297 to waive the second reading, so that then our next meeting would be the third reading and the vote.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Lisa Curler and a second by Jim Bartlett to waive the second reading and move to third reading at our next meeting. So can I have a roll call on that, please?
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, so correction on what's moving to our next agenda. We'll have a third reading on the Real Hope Community Church zoning ordinance, and then we'll have second readings on the two ordinances that preceded this one. And so we are on the announcements and recommendations for future agendas. So what else would members like to bring forward? Or staff?
Just wanted to double check. I think we're having a work session with the library before our next meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Thank you for that.
We do.
Yes, that is correct.
And Misty, can you remind us the time that was? 5:30?
I believe it was 5:30.
Okay. Well,
It
you
was
can
5
note-
o'clock or 5:30.
send us a notice or something, and so
Yes.
then we'll have.
I know that I did send an email asking everybody to put on your calendar, because it appeared we were moving forward. I just did not have confirmation, because it was pulled over here, but I think we had to check with the library board too, potentially.
Okay, so likely work session with the library board before the next council meeting. Okay.
I pulled up Misty's last email. It says with an anticipated start of 5 or 5:30.
Okay, all right, she remembers.
Well, I have, like to share that we will have, or do have, upcoming committee openings. So we do have a library board opening that I will be needing to fill. And then I was just received notice that one of our Parks Board members will be departing, this person's term actually concludes in 2027, but is looking to finish their term by December, at the end of December of this year or earlier, for a variety of reasons. And so just to let you know that there will be a Parks Board opening as well. And so please, if you have any recommendations for people who might be of interest and be great contributors to these particular boards, to ask them to apply. And love to see a lot of applicants for these roles. Any other agenda topics, Drake, that you want to bring up for our next meeting, or any other members that would like to ask for agenda topics?
Intending to bring forward an update to the dam management policy to reflect the new water level order. It's possible that we will have a precise implementation plan that was before the Plan Commission come before you. That one is tentative. We're still working with the developer on some items there as well, and working on a development agreement for that. And then I believe we will be bringing forward a resolution in recognition of service for Sean Bollig after he's concluded his service on the library board. Oh, and Officer Jess Johnson, who has retired from the city after 27 years of service.
Okay. If there's nothing else to add on this item, I'm going to call our meeting adjourned. It's 8:38. Thanks, everyone.
Very good. 2 hours, that's good. This is 2 hours?
2 hours. And we have a 3-hour max celebrating
Oh, well, that's good.
3 hours, we are, really.
Okay, that's a hard line.
Hard line, 3 hours, except if it's a closed session, then we don't have a timeline.
I'm sure you got a lot more elegant than that, but those are good things to Isn't it interesting to figure out what we could get?
Just want to say thank you, everybody.
Yes.
So excited to see this moving forward generally, and even more appreciative to be a part of it still. So, thank you. We're very